Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from One Accomplished 427 and it says, am I the arsehole for telling my boyfriend my dad was dead? I, 26 female, lost my mother to cancer when I was 8. And I've always had an absent father. I only found out who he was when I was 13, and even then, he did not want custody of me, forcing me to stay in the foster system until I was 18. Over my whole life, I've had about 5 conversations with him, give or take. He is like a stranger to me. He appears once in a blue moon to ask for money or something along those lines. It doesn't really bother me anymore. I've just learned to accept it now, but I don't like talking about it, so to avoid that conversation with people, I usually just say both my parents are dead. This leads me to a year and a half ago, when I had just started dating my boyfriend, 25 male, and like usual I had just told him my parents were dead, but the other day my dad showed up at my door. I still don't know how he knows where I live, and asked for $100, except for my boyfriend was there, and he obviously found out my dad was not dead. This led to a long conversation with him that night where I explained the whole situation. He said this was a breach of trust between us because I lied about my dad and that he needed some space to rethink our relationship, but he doesn't think he will leave me. I feel so shitty and that I should have just told him earlier, but I'm gonna be honest, I just didn't think. So am I the arsehole? And Opie added like a very tiny update on that first part of the post, which just said my boyfriend texted me 5 minutes ago asking to talk, so we're gonna have a full in-depth conversation tomorrow after work, and I'll update again then. So much more Eagle says this one, no one's an arsehole here. This seems more of a relationship advice question. I don't think you're an arsehole per se, but I can understand why your boyfriend would be questioning things after dating you for a year and a half and you not telling him the truth about a pretty important part of your past. I can see why you just use the dad's dead shorthand when you first meet someone, but after that amount of time, one would think you'd have talked more about stuff like that. Maybe you both need some time to think, and maybe you should consider getting some personal therapy, if you can, to work through these feelings so you can talk about them. Similar Name says you're the arsehole. It's 1.5 years into dating. Sure, not great third date material, but you could have said, my mother is dead and she was the only parent in my life, and just left it at that to begin with. Later, as you got more serious, you could tell him a bit more. My mother is dead and I don't have a father, just a deadbeat sperm donor who let me grow up in foster care. He only comes around to ask for money sometimes. Enough Process says, no one's an arsehole here. I can completely understand why you just go my dad is dead because he's dead to you. He never once behaved towards you as if he were your dad. I can also understand why your boyfriend was startled and wondered what else you might just not be telling him about. But at what point do you tell someone, by the way, I say my dad is dead, but in fact he is technically alive. He keeps finding out my address and showing up wanting money. You haven't mentioned that you're living with him or that you have plans to marry. If it was me, the one lied to, I think the point when I'd expect to be told about an absent father who isn't nearly as absent as you'd wish he was is before you decide to live together. Because at that point, the sporadic dad appearance becomes your living partner's problem too. And definitely I'd expect to know if there were plans to marry. But if you just hadn't told him because you do your best not to think about your dad except when he shows up, and he hadn't showed up since before you started dating your boyfriend, then I don't think it's really a breach of trust. It's just typical bad timing on the part of your dad. Pip and Squeak says you're the arsehole. Now you look like a liar and technically you are a liar. If he posted this from his point of view, everyone would tell him to run. It immediately begs the question, what else did she lie about? I haven't seen or spoken to my father in 14 years. Essentially I can say he's dead to me, but to go as far as saying he's dead is too far when you're in a relationship with someone. When someone else suggested therapy, OP said, honestly, I never really considered therapy since I thought I was over the hurt of my dad not being there. But now that you mention it, I actually feel like it might do me some good, so I'll look into that. To another commenter, OP said, I didn't mention it here, but he did stand up for me at the door, and it was only afterwards he confronted me about it, since I had lied, and I think that's the problem with the situation. He just needs to gather his thoughts, I think. OP responding to saying, how did your dad find out where you live? OP says, I genuinely have no clue, and I don't want to think about it. Obviously, if he does it again, it might be more of a problem. Then OP shortly afterwards added the update and said, before I get into the update, I would like to clear things up. 1. I've only given money to my dad once when I was still desperate for his love and acceptance, but he did not get any money this time. 2. Despite his confusion, my boyfriend stepped in to defend me and get my dad to leave. It was only after my dad left he asked me about it. Now, onto the update. My boyfriend told me that all the sudden information along with the knowledge I hadn't told him the truth was very overwhelming, and he just needed some space to not say the wrong thing. He also said that he got why I lied initially, and he wasn't mad that I lied, more hurt that I felt like I couldn't tell him about it. He also mentioned that he couldn't be there for me if he didn't know what was going on. The conversation ended in tears, and it is the most vulnerable I have been in front of someone. He was very understanding, and we've decided to draw a line in the sand and start again, if that makes sense. I've also looked into therapy for my childhood trauma, and all in all, I'm using this as an opportunity to better myself and heal fully. Thank you for all your kind comments. And I think it's a pretty positive update as things can go, right? I'm glad that they're able to work through things, talk about things, and open up about things as well, and that OP's seeking therapy for their past childhood trauma. The post itself was very much "you're the arsehole" with "not the arsehole" and "no one's an arsehole here" sprinkled in here and there. And I kind of felt like it was a "no one's an arsehole" here for my perspective. I get why the boyfriend was a bit taken back by the way things went down, but I also get why OP acted the way she did and said what she did. Yes, of course, there was better ways of saying it. She could have said "my dad is dead to me" or any other variation of that. But as I said, I'm glad that they was able to work through things. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now this next story comes from Yo-Yo, who says, I, 16 male, got into an argument with my older brother, 26 male, and told him he'll never measure up to our deceased father. I have 3 older siblings, 2 sisters who are 28 and my older brother Chris, who is 26. I'm the youngest child at 16. 3 years ago, our dad died of cancer after a pretty rough battle. Being 11 when my dad got sick, I remember it being a pretty scary time. Not always understanding what was happening, but the one thing I always knew was that Chris was there for me. Obviously, it was also a very difficult time for Chris, but he really looked out for me during that time. And Chris has continued to be the same. Great guy and awesome big brother to this day. So, 3 weekends ago, I went to a party, drank too much, and I got drunk for the 3rd time in my life. I called Chris and asked him if he could come get me when I wanted to leave, and my friends, one of which was our designated driver who was sober, wanted to stay. Chris came to pick me up, worried that I was going to get in the car with a drunk driver if he didn't. The next day he lectured me on my drinking problem and getting into cars with drunk drivers. Things got heated because I felt like he was assuming a lot, because I'm a junior in high school and I've only drank 3 times at parties, which I feel is pretty normal. And I wasn't going to get in the car with a drunk driver. My designated driver was completely sober, so I feel like I was more responsible than he was giving me credit for. But yes, I was drunk enough to think calling him at 10 PM out of the blue to pick me up because I was tired was a good idea. And then 2 weeks ago, Chris found out I quit the soccer team. He started lecturing me on commitment and talking about how I needed to be doing extracurricular for college. And I shouldn't just quit because of laziness. And then things got heated, and he started talking about my drinking problem again, and then talking about my room being messy, and then we were really arguing, and he was accusing me of being disrespectful. And then I fucked up. I lost it and told Chris he wasn't my dad, and I didn't need him lecturing me, and how he thinks he could replace dad, but he'd never be half the man dad was. I was mad and just looking for something mean to say. Chris left my room, and about 30 minutes later came back in and apologized for overstepping. It was clear that he had been crying, but I was still mad and couldn't bring myself to apologize, even though I knew I should, and I didn't mean what I said. Chris left and went back to his place, and we didn't talk for 3 days. 3 days later, I finally did the right thing and texted him a heartfelt apology for what I had done and said. Thanked him for always caring enough to be there for me, and told him I spoke with a coach about rejoining the soccer team. He texts back hours later, "Thank you, that means a lot." Since that time, we've only spoken sporadically over text, whereas we used to speak all day. I've asked him if he wants to hang out, and he's always busy, or he says maybe tomorrow, and then when I text him the next day, he doesn't reply until it's too late. Chris has come to every soccer game I've had over the past couple of years, but he's missed the last two. I've apologized again by text. I would do it in person, but I haven't seen him since our fight, whereas normally I see him a couple of times a week. One of our things has been going to see new Marvel releases together. I asked him if he wants to go next weekend, and he said his girlfriend surprised him and took him this weekend. So I replied back, okay, maybe we can do something else together? I'd love to hang out with you. I miss you. And no reply yet. I know what I said was completely fucked up and wrong, besides being a very mean thing to say. It's not true at all. He's great. I understand why he's upset, and I know it's my fault. But now I don't know how to make things better. Chris was overbearing at times, but I would give anything to go back to that right now. Is there anything more I can do to fix this? The top commenter says, you broke his heart. And I don't say that to make you feel guilty. I say that so you can understand that a text message apology is not remotely enough. You need to go to him, not wait for him to come over. You literally need to go to his place and apologize in person. Opie says you're absolutely right that a text apology is not enough for what I've done. I want to apologize in person because he deserves one. Should I just show up to his place uninvited? Because I thought about doing that. I asked to come over before and he didn't reply until it was already late, saying he had just got home. But next time, I could. This is incredibly heartbreaking. You know, Chris, who stepped up to care for his 11-year-old brother during their father's death, continuing to be present and protective for years after, only to have it thrown in his face like that, that's got to hurt. And that, again, that, like that commenter said, that's not to bring Opie down or anything like that. I don't think Chris is pulling away out of punishment. Feels like it's about protection. Like, he's probably really worried about overstepping again and, you know, questioning everything because of what was said to him. And that stuff before probably all felt really natural for him, caring for his brother like that. And yes, what OP said was heartbreaking. I can remember in my teen rebellion years, saying some stupid shit. Again, not excusing it, of course. But I agree with that comment that you just need to speak to him face to face, tell him exactly what you wrote here. But OP comes in with our update 2 months later and says, I thought I'd provide an update to my first post. Someone advised me that I write my brother a letter apologizing, which I did. I apologized for being mean and hurtful, and that I was wrong for doing that. I also got him a separate card and wrote a message thanking him for everything he's done for me. I went to his house with my letter and card, and when I found out he was home, to go talk to him. But unfortunately, when I got there, he was gone already, so I slid them under the door. When he got back home, he found them and read them, and then he called me to arrange to come see me. He came over here and I apologized in person for what I said. He was very straightforward with me and honest about my actions. He explained that the reason he had been avoiding me lately is because he needed some time apart because he was beginning not to like me. He said he loved me, but he didn't want to be around me sometimes. That was pretty hard to hear. He said that lately I've just been not very nice. The comment about our dad was by far the worst, but I make other snappy comments. He tried to brush it off as me being just a teenager, but had now decided it was best to let me know. Being a teenager is not an excuse to be a constant asshole to everybody at home, is how he put it. He gave a few examples, and looking back, he was absolutely right. It was pretty upsetting to hear. I know he wasn't saying it to upset me. I was thankful that he was telling me, or at least I'm thankful now. I promised that I would check my attitude. He said a little more thoughtfulness was all I needed, and that even though sometimes I act like an arsehole, he knows I'm not one. After we finished talking, we hugged. He told me not to forget that he loves me and that I'm great. Since then, I've been trying to be more considerate. I really am trying to follow the advice he gave me. It's been a couple of months now, and I'm happy to say that it's working. My mum told me a couple of weeks ago that I'm a joy to be around. In the car today, my brother told me it's been really nice spending time with me lately, so that's good news. Oh, that last couple of lines got me going. It sounded like the brothers' straightforward talking is just what OP needed and got them back on a really good track, not just for themselves, but with their family as well, which I think is wonderful. And yes, Teen said some shitty things, but it sounds like he's reflected really well. I always look back at myself and I think, what was I like in those years? And I couldn't imagine having this self-reflection that OP had, which I think is just absolutely amazing. And I'm just so glad for them that things are turning around and being better for them. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now this next story is a totally random one. Some people call it a troll post. It does have an update, but I was reading some of the comments on it, and some people saying the same sort of shit that happened with them was wild. This one is titled, "My 28 female boyfriend, 29 male, grabbed a stranger's ice cream. Can't believe this actually happened." So we were out walking around this evening. He'd mentioned wanting to get an ice cream but hadn't brought money, and neither had I. We usually take a walk after dinner and don't buy stuff during it unless we decide beforehand we want to get something that night. So as we're walking past a group of people, he made a sudden movement to the side and then started running in the opposite direction, full speed. It was so fast I hadn't seen exactly what he did. People were saying things like, "Holy shit," and "Oh my god." One guy said, "He took my ice cream," and that's when I realized what had happened. He stole this guy's ice cream on a busy street. I was absolutely shocked and mortified. Everyone around us had seen it, or else quickly got told about it. They were staring and pointing down the street where he was still running. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I apologized repeatedly to the man whose ice cream he grabbed, then said I was going to find him and got myself out of there. Utterly humiliating. Well, he'd nearly made it back to the house in that time. I got there a few minutes later and found he'd been crouched in the stairway, furiously eating the ice cream out of the cup. He scrambled when he heard me coming, dripping ice cream everywhere. Looked like a deer in headlights. He literally left the cup on the stairs and ran away from me up to our apartment. But I had the key, so he was just standing there when I got there. I of course demanded an explanation. He had the balls to deny he had done anything. He insisted he didn't know what I was talking about. I sort of lost it and started yelling at him. "The cup is down on the stairs. Your hands and mouth are covered in it. A dozen people literally saw you snatch it right out of the guy's hand. What the fuck do you mean you don't know?" He then changed his story and said it was just a joke. What the fuck? He decided to reenact a YouTube prank video on a random stranger. How is that a prank? After I let us inside, I kept asking what makes him think that's okay to do, and he changed the story again. This time he said he doesn't know why he did it. It was just an urge. I didn't even know what to say, so I told him I needed some time to myself. I'm seriously disturbed. He got no good reason. This is completely out of character for him. He's always very mild, reserved, and treats people, especially me, very kindly. He's the last person I thought would do something like this. What do I do next to figure out what the fuck that was about? How can I know he's even being honest? So the top commenter said to OP, "If this isn't a troll post, I think he's mentally ill or has some sort of brain tumor or something." And there was a lot of people saying the same thing. OP replied to that saying, "Add in this to the top comment so anyone still following will see." Last night I asked him again what he was thinking. He said, "Jesus, I don't know, I already told you." I said I couldn't accept that answer because it's not a real answer. I told him we needed to talk about it because, after reading some of the comments last night, I needed to know if something was wrong with him mentally. He said it wasn't. I started naming possible things he could be stressed about like job, family, money, and he said it was all fine. To my knowledge, that's true. If something's going on, then he's hiding it well. He was visibly annoyed by my questioning, and when I eventually asked if he realized how bizarre it was, he snapped, "Who fucking cares? Please stop bothering me, I'm busy." He was just browsing Facebook. He refused to talk about it anymore after that, but has been talking about other stuff as normal. It's like he just pretending it's never happened. If it hadn't, there's nothing about his behavior right now that would be weird to me. So now I feel like I'll be crazy if I bring it up anymore. I don't know if I just need to forget about it like he is or what. I'm still stunned and very confused. And here's one of the comments I was talking about. Ashley replied saying, "I'm ashamed to say I've been there. I dated a guy for 3 years, late 20s, and one day we were talking out of his apartment and his neighbor was celebrating a birthday and had balloons on the door. Out of the blue, he runs up to the door and pops all the balloons. I was dumbfounded. This behavior made no sense to me, and he had never done anything like it before. He ran down the hall and down the fire escape stairs. I had to run after him because I was so embarrassed to be associated with him after that and didn't want his neighbors to see me. I forgot what his explanation for his behavior was, but it didn't make sense. Long story short, he's bipolar amongst other things. I think SO is mentally ill. I'm pretty sure of it actually." So OP came in with a mini update and says, "So I finally got the explanation from him yesterday. Turns out he was in a Discord server chat where the members all dare each other to humiliate themselves by doing outlandish things in public they'd never normally do. He's told me he's left the group because the experience was really stressful to him. Not exciting like he thought when he joined. It was the first time he had taken on one of the dares. He said that afterwards he just didn't know what to say and couldn't believe he'd actually done it. He was extremely apologetic for acting like a lunatic, causing me to worry about him. We had a long talk about it last night. I genuinely believe he regrets it. He knows what a stupid fuck up it was. Not much else to say really. Just wanted to come back now that I got the answers. Thank you to everyone who tried to make sense of it in the original post and who gave me advice for talking with him. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm believing that whole Discord thing anyway. Why would you? Surely you'd need some way to prove you was doing it if you was doing it for some kind of challenge on Discord or whatever. You need a camera, something. Otherwise, why would you do it in the first place? Because you can't prove it. I swear, like, that was like similar to a plot of a film or something. Anonymous people daring you to do stuff over the internet. Not sure if that's true or not, but maybe I'm making that up. But this guy is 29 doing that. And if it did turn out to be some sort of Discord thing and not, you know, something else going on, this guy's 29 years old. To be fair though, I'd love to have been on that street when that shit was going down, because that is just, that's wild, isn't it? I'm just picturing this guy stood there with his ice cream and then suddenly his hand's empty and he's just looking like, what the hell is some guy bolting down the road with a tub of ice cream in his hand? Absolutely wild scenes. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my